Good morning. And I'd like to say a big thank you for being invited to speak to here today at the WiMENA conference. It's a subject very close to my heart. I've spent more decades than I'm going to admit working with the development of women in sport, promoting women in sport, and trying to be a role model for women in sport. And someone said earlier, which is very profound, if you can't see it, you can't be it. Now, my journey was probably very different. I was the second woman that came through men's professional football as a referee. So I think you can probably guess what that journey looked and felt like. Most of it I couldn't repeat in this room. It would be inappropriate. But to say, when I started refereeing, football wasn't even recognised for women in the Football Association. It was banned in 1921, not appropriate for women to play football. They showed too much flesh. And in 1974, a group of women developed the Women's Football Association, a voluntary group. They were absolute pioneers. And it wasn't until 1994 that women recognised women in football in any guise. So you can imagine the barriers there was in those days. And my goodness, do you know how good it is for my heart to see where we are now with women in football? You know, they're the only ones to bring home the silverware so far. I'll just put that in there. So I don't want to waste too much time talking about me. We've got an amazing panel to share with you. And I think particularly following on from the last panel, which was unlocking sporting potential, my goodness, when you hear from these ladies, they are the potential. They've lived that journey. They are amazing. So our panel is sporting role models with a focus on setting the bar for future generations. You know, I'm the same as many parents. I always told my children, within reason, don't let anybody tell you you can't. That you can't reach for the stars. You can't achieve your dreams. And these girls are going to share with you how they've achieved their dreams. And I'm totally in awe with this panel. I have to say that to you. So to start with, and I don't want to take up any of their time, BURCA, Formula One woman in sport, she's going to share her journey. And she's got a few slides to start with. So I'm going to stop talking and she's going to take the lectern. Thank you.
So hello, everyone. I'm actually very excited to speak here. I'm speaking here as the chair of the Women in Motorsport Commission in the FIA, which is the top governing authority for the motorsport activities. But I'm a race driver myself, and actually I was maybe the first race driver, rally driver in the Middle East Championship. I'm from Turkey originally, and in the first to be on the podium against male competitors in the years 2012-13. But here I am not here to talk about myself, and I'm going to be talking about a lot of hilarious women, and that's why I'm very excited, because it's easy to talk about yourself, but to talk about others is more of a responsibility. And in 2009, the Women in Motorsport Commission in the FIA was established to promote gender equality in motorsports. The Commission aims to increase women's involvement in the sport and serve as a networking and mentorship hub from 2024. It seeks to capitalize on growing interest in equality and support FIA's new equality, diversity and inclusion agenda. The Women in Motorsport Commission strives to improve performance, raise awareness, promote education, foster engagement, and enhance connectivity. To realize this objective, the Commission has implemented a range of programs and projects that I took over very recently, a few months ago, but we had two amazing presidents before that I want to also remind their names in the coming slides. So, how how can I go to the next slide? We're already there. Perfect. The role of the FIA in promoting women in sport. So there are FIA Women in Motorsport initiatives, such as FIA Girls on Track Rising Stars, which was finished and reached a conclusion in the end of 2023. Engagement and education, which is still going on through FIA Girls on Track, internship, and the new mentoring program we're going to be launching very soon. And connectivity and networking through FIA Women in Motorsport networking events, which we're going to have another one in Le Mans in the 13th of June. And partnership and collaboration with international organizations, such as being here today, and more than happy to be collaborating with More Than Equal also, hopefully more, and many more important organizations there are. And the impact part is increased visibility of women in sport, which is very important, especially also in motorsports, and creating opportunities and reducing barriers for women in motorsports. So I want to just go over pioneering women and some of their stories in motorsports, but we have here also one with us, ABBIE, but there's many women right now to talk about. I'll just give a few examples just to have an idea. Lella Lombardi from 1975, she's actually the only woman to score points in Formula One, and she participated in 17 Formula One Grand Prix between 74 to 76. Michèle Mouton, who was the first president and the long president of the Women in Motorsport Commission, which happens to be my hero as well. She is the only and the first, and she didn't win just one race. She won many WRC events at the top level, at the highest level, marking history. Danica Patrick was the first woman to win an IndyCar race in 2008, and Jutta Kleinschmidt was the first woman to win a Dakar race, followed by Cristina Guterres afterwards. So just quickly to go over FIA Girls on Track. For the performance part, the Rising Stars was completed, but there is something actually very important to go over there, is that from the FIA Rising Stars, we have actually right now, we can see the results. In the 2024 season, in the Formula One Academy, we have Maya Voig, Dorian Pin, Bianca Buscamante. They were all past participants. Of course, their remarkable careers is not just the FIA interaction that made them achieve their goals to this point, but it is very important to increase the base of the pyramid and to help women have more visibility. So you can see the results also in the World Endurance Championship that are still ongoing. And some more stories from success stories that actually crossed paths from the Women in Motorsport Commission. For example, Extreme E McLaren driver Emma Gilmer, 2021 cross-country T3 title winner Cristina Guterres, also a Dakar winner now, to be updating the presentation, and Extreme E Rosberg driver Molly Taylor, ex-driver, were among the drivers to take part in Qatar Women's Cross-Country Selection in collaboration with the Women in Motorsport Commission in 2016. Going a little bit more back to 2012, Michelle Gatting won the Women in Motorsport Volkswagen Scirocco Junior Cup shootout, and she still currently races with the Iron Dome team. So more from Women in Motorsports, of course, the Iron Dome project. Also, the founder of the project is the previous president of the Women in Motorsport Commission, Ms. Deborah Mayer, is a name that should be talked about when we are talking about women in motorsports. They have amazing programs around different disciplines in motorsports for women. Rally driver Rachel Somashini is also a great example. She is racing for a cause. She suffers from cystic fibrosis, a condition she was born with, but she is a fighter and she is also performing very good results in motorsports. Sophia Florsch made European Le Mans history with being on the podium, and she's the first woman to score points on the Formula 3 races. Stephanie Travers started working with the Petronas team in 2019 as a trackside fluids engineer. So we are not just here to support the competitors in the world of motorsports, but in all aspects of motorsports. And now she's a deputy team principal at Team X44. And coming to the UK, Natalie McGloin also is a name that I want to for sure remember here. She is a tetraplegic rally driver, the first one in the world, and she's the president of the Disability and Accessibility Commission at the FIA with us. And now the second tetraplegic rally driver is from Turkey, actually, and she became recently a member of the Disability and Accessibility Commission as well. So to continue with what we are doing for women and what women are doing in the world of motorsports, the FIA Motorsport Engineering Scholarship was launched in 2022 with the aim of diversifying and enriching the motorsport engineering scene. And the partnership with Cranfield University is a unique global talent search. And the first winner of the scholarship is Jessica Salvini from Argentina. She is the first female track engineer from Argentina. And the 2023 FIA President's Awards in Equality, Diversity and Inclusion had a record number of entries, which resulted winner being Motorsport South Africa, and they received a contribution of 10,000 euros. All these are very important works that are done to enlarge the base of the pyramid, which we're always speaking about. And then the educational program that is still going on in the FIA Girls on Track within Formula E also will be with other championships, such as the World Endurance Championship. And then, as I said, the FIA Women in Motorsport networking events. If somehow you will be in Le Mans on the 13th of June, we will be there. And so just to go over some challenges faced by women: access to opportunities, less funding and sponsorship, difficulty obtaining spots in the top teams, and underestimation of female driver skills, which I personally also lived myself from my experience. When I had an accident, it was because maybe I was not able to drive good enough, but when my male competitor, whom I happened to pass in that championship, had a crash, it was just conquering his limits. So higher criticism and expectations compared to our male counterparts, and increased social and media pressures, which doesn't make, of course, life easier. And now going on the positive side, impact of successful women. Of course, increased visibility, more media coverage and recognition of female pilots, positive effects on public perception and institutional support, inspiration, which personally, Michèle Mouton, as I said, was my hero and was my great inspiration. And through seeing what she had done, I had the courage to start motorsport late as 24 years old and to enter the World Championship event within 2 years, coming out of Turkey at the time where we didn't have a lot of international events. And right now we have a lot of international drivers also. And for role models for young girls, as I said, increased interest and participation of women in motorsport, which we are trying to do also with the Girls on Track, so that more women from surrounding schools in where we have the motorsport events will be able to attend, and they will have increased interest. So maybe some of them will participate, and like this, we will increase the base of the pyramid. Change of mentality, gradual transformation of perceptions and reduction of sexist stereotypes, creation of support programs and initiatives for inclusion. So just if anybody is sleepy, I want to just wake up everyone. And if you could kindly get your phones and get this QR code and vote for it. I will share the results later on, but we have actually results. This is research that was done by Arwen AI. With their permission, I got it from them, from the FIA. And I'll give you a few more seconds. I will not show your results. I will show the research results. Is everybody ready to see the results? Okay. So, countries with more female fans than male fans. China is leading with India, and then comes Brazil, Colombia, Italy, Germany, UK, USA, and Australia. But this is, of course, fans in sports in general. And female F1 fans are 10 times more likely to drive positivity. when you look at social media followers and brand builders, again, research from Arwen AI that I found very interesting for the future of our sports. And women's sport is due to triple in value. In 2021, it was worth 350 million pounds, and hopefully, and we're guessing by the end of 2030, it will be worth over 1 billion pounds. So, as a summary, I want to thank you all for listening, and I will be more than happy to answer questions further on, but I don't want to take too much of your time because we have very valuable speakers lined up after me. Thank you.
I did tell you we're going to have inspirational women. And in a sport that is so male-dominated, it's fabulous to hear the initiatives they're rolling out to promote women in Formula One. And just out of interest, I met a woman only a few weeks ago who was a trackside engineer for the Formula One big races. And actually, I'm not a big Formula One fan, but I do understand the big races. So to see women in those roles outside of actually just participating is hugely important. So it's one to watch the growth of that sport and that industry. So our next speaker, thank you, but my iPad's now gone to sleep. Hopefully you haven't. So our next speaker is Karen Webb-Moss, who is the advisor for More Than Equal and chair of British Swimming. And Karen is going to be accompanied by Amy Ita, and they're going to run you through a few slides as well. Karen.
Congratulations to the organisers, because this feels really good to be in this room. At the beginning of last week, I spoke to 500 Premier League academies, and out of 500, 494 were white male, and tried to crack a few jokes, talk about my son's interest in football. I might as well have stood in a cemetery and spoken to some tombstones, so, oh, well, thanks at least for some reaction. Okay, I'm going to try, because I think getting to the panel and some questions is really important. And I've asked Abbie to join us today because, you know, I may be the suit, that's the driver, and you've already heard from one driver. So it's been a decade of positive change for women's sport, and there is still a hell of a long way to go. But a recent report, might have been yours, Lisa, actually showed that 84% of general sports fans, half of those male, are actively engaged or interested in women's sport. And over the last few years, in 2017, back then, 180 million of the global audience watched England women bowl out India, 80,000 filled Wembley for a women's friendly, and 11.7 people tuned into a Women's World Cup match. We now have, and you've heard some great examples today, professional contracts for women across football, rugby union, cricket, and we've got live TV rights being paid for sports, including rugby, football, gymnastics, athletics, and netball. And women are chalking up multiple medals in snow sports, para sports, extreme sports. And we've recently, in case you caught that on TV, had a woman meet a man in a darts match, which was a live TV, really exciting TV drama watched by millions. And women are winning in the only other two gender-equal sports. That's equestrian and sailing. Motorsport is the third. And at this summer's Paralympic Games, for the very first time, we've achieved gender parity. It will be a 50-50 male and female split of the athletes. But high above us and outside of sport, we've sent 70 women to space. There are around 1,500 combat-trained female fighter pilots in the US and UK alone. But, and I think you know what I'm going to say and what I'm leading up to, no woman has competed in F1 for nearly half a century. Well, that's because it's not legal for women to drive against men. That's because we don't have the mental or cognitive ability. That's because we don't have the neck strength to cope with the G-forces. Remember the fighter pilots. And we're not good enough, and no one's going to watch it on TV, and no one's really interested. Well, we're interested. Oh, sorry. We are more than equal. And we're not about making this easier for women to be racing drivers or get to F1. We're about making it as equally hard. We're not alone, as you've heard, in trying to smash what is the last glass ceiling in sport. But we're not a racing series, a team owner. We're not a women's equal rights campaigning group. So what does More Than Equal do? We have a bold purpose. But even when, I'm sorry, BURCA, about this one, you're going to have a word with the blokes, even when the written FIA rules still refer only to a he and a him, this is indeed a bold and ambitious mission. We were ironically set up by two men, F1 racing driver and champion David Coulthard and his friend, businessman and entrepreneur Karol Komarek. From the outset, and I must say that the senior leadership team are women. We have Ali, CEO, also like me, from outside motorsport, Kate and I, and myself as chair. From the outset, we knew that this was going to be a huge challenge. And as you've touched on, it's a challenge of an industry full of stereotypes, prejudice, opinion, and very, very little fact or data. So we knew we needed to have robust research and data to enable us to build a platform or a system for action and change. We started by trying to understand, where are the girls karting or racing and driving? Where are they? Where do they live? How long are they doing this for? Why do they drop off early? What are the issues they're facing? And the lack of data was absolutely astonishing, but unfortunately not surprising, because nobody has bothered to look into girls and women drivers. At the same time, we kicked off the first ever huge comprehensive piece of research into the attitudes, beliefs and issues facing the girls and women in motorsport. In a nutshell, our research and findings spelt out the stereotypes, the myths, the economic, social and cultural barriers, the lack of training, the lack of track time, the lack of real opportunities, as well as a huge gender performance and participation gap. The number of girls karting around the world is tiny. But we also found strong support now for women to go head-to-head against men in F1. And with the staggering growth of the new female F1 audience, there are huge commercial opportunities and huge inclusive opportunities. I want to bring in ABBIE, who is a driver, to speak about the practical reality of being a driver and one of the first females in the sport, the reality behind our research. ABBIE.
Hello, checking that this works. Thank you very much for having me. And, I think some really interesting stats that Karen touched upon there. I think, in particular, the one that stands out for me are the female fighter jets. If they can withstand G-forces of God knows what, then, little old us in a racing car can do quite well as well. My background is I've been in motorsport for 22 years. I was one of the lucky ones in terms of I had family that were already in the sport. So 10 years old, I spoke to my dad and said, can I get a go-kart? Can I start karting, Dad? And back then in 2002, you could probably count on one hand the amount of other female drivers that were actually competing nationally in go-karts. And if I think about the kind of culture back then in 2002, it was very much a whatever you do, do not let the girl beat you. And there was many, many instances that I can think of where actually the young lad would rather crash his kart trying to hit me off the circuit than allow me to beat him, which is laughable, and I feel sorry for them more than anything. And it actually meant that I had to race twice as hard and get my elbows out even harder than the lads would to actually gain some respect. If you think about 2002 to 2024, where we are now, actually one of the biggest, I suppose, obstacles, hurdles that I found was the financial side of things. It's extremely challenging for both males and females to raise the budget to go racing. Motorsport is a very expensive sport. But I'll give an example as to that there is still quite a stigma attached to supporting female drivers over male drivers. In 2019, I was trying to raise the budget to race in Australia, and I was basically pitching to a global organisation, very, very big, well-known organisation that I'd actually already done some TV work for as well. And they basically had a budget that they wanted to put into motorsport. And there was myself, and there was a male driver basically going for this budget. We both had very, very similar previous results, successes. If anything, actually, I think mine was slightly better. And we were lucky that we had someone on the inside of this company that would be able to basically fill us in on the happenings behind and give us a bit of an insight as to where their mindset and decision-making were going. Now, in the end, the funding went to the male driver, and what we heard from our inside help was that they were viewing supporting me as a gamble. Supporting the female in the male-dominated sport was the gamble, even though actually, arguably, my CV was way better. And that's why the work that Karen and the team are doing at More Than Equal, and myself at Rebellion Motorsport, the work that we're doing is so crucial.
Right, thanks, Abbie. So, that's why we need solutions, and she's why we do what we do. So More Than Equal's homework identified the gaps and showed us what needed to be done and what we believe needs to be done differently. First, we have to scout the talent. And working with industry data, technical experts, we built an algorithm to find not only the girls that were performing well, but find those girls with the potential to perform well. At the same time, we opened it up to all girls karting around the world that were interested in training and could join our program. Second, we have developed the first ever driver development program, a female-specific training program. And we knew that we had to intervene early, show girls a pathway to the top, just as we do in the Olympic and other high-performance elite sports, and give them the opportunity for gender and age and stage-appropriate and holistic training. We've just had our first training camp with our first cohort of girls, 6 of them average age 13. So the training has begun, and the learning and the fact-finding for More Than Equal continues. As well as the commitment to be data-led and to ongoing research, we're looking into the areas of the true cost of getting through F1's pyramid. We're looking into the design of a car for women, and we're working with the FIA on that. The other pillar of our strategic focus is around connections and community. And I think, as Abbie knows, and you probably know as well, being a driver, a female driver or a young karter is very isolating. And we want to link hundreds of them around the world and their families together and provide ongoing support. Abbie, you mentioned earlier about taking action to challenge barriers. You specifically are driving a program around the economic barriers. I think it's worth touching on that.
Yeah, so back in end of 2022, I co-founded a motorsport team called Rebellion Motorsport. And as I touched on in the first speech there, that there is a big barrier in motorsport in general, which is the financial side of things. And what we're trying to do at Rebellion Motorsport is basically bring meritocracy back to motorsport. We want motorsport to be accessible for people from all walks of life, whether you're male, female, gay, straight. It really doesn't matter your background. What we want to do is provide opportunities in terms of perhaps coming along to the race weekends. If you're an aspiring mechanic or perhaps a media person, then we can basically give you that network and give you the opportunities to get your foot on the ladder of motorsport. Similarly with drivers, obviously with it being quite financially dependent, we want to basically raise investment to help fund the best drivers into the sport. And that's from young age all the way through to those that have worked hard and been able to kind of hustle, get that investment in, but need that extra little bit to get them to where they want to go. And one main thing that Rebellion are really, really keen on trying to do is to really push forward and create the opportunities whereby, you don't have to be a female to come into Rebellion and have that extra support, but we really want people that are passionate. And if we think about, the stopwatch, lap times, okay, you would all argue that actually the lap times that are posted, they are the quickest times. You're not going to lie, these are the quickest drivers on the grid. But actually, the stopwatch does lie. It's tainted because only the very, very small percentage of people that are wealthy enough to get into motorsport have the opportunity to drive. So that's where we want to help with the funding and resources to help get the best drivers, hopefully, into Formula One.
So, I'll cut this short. Are the barriers for women in this £13 billion business insurmountable? No. Although you don't see them being interviewed or appearing on Netflix's Drive to Survive, where about 1.8% of the airtime of that total series was given to women in the field, in the battle between Red Bull and Mercedes, there are 2 brilliantly smart race strategists. Both of them are women. And along with others, and you've heard a lot today about the opportunities and about the money finally going into women in sport, we're proving that backing women's sport, backing women in sport and women in motorsport isn't just appropriate diversity, equality and inclusion and good governance, it's good business. So, as to the question, if a woman can really get to that F1 podium, it's not an if, it's just a when.
My thanks to Karen and Abbie. Do you know, I sat there and I thought there's so many things I could pick out of that conversation. I'm not going to bore you, but one thing I'm going to pick up is Abbie saying she wanted a cart, she said to her dad. And I was 15 when I said to my father, I want football boots. And he looked at me and he said, I didn't buy football boots for your brothers. I'm not buying them for you. But you know, girls, we do twist our fathers around our little fingers. So of course I got my football boots. So that was one point. And I think the other one, is a really serious point about funding and sponsorship. You know, we need to really promote the fact that women's sport is so fast growing. And we've got leaders in the field like rugby, like football, like cricket, and with other sports coming on behind. We don't want women's sponsorship to be tagged on to a man's package. We want our own packages to support the growth. And pre-2022, people told me, well, nobody's going to watch women's football on TV, are they? Let's be honest. You know, you only get 1,000 or 2 at the grounds of the Women's Super League. Well, I think we were last on 68% rise in attendance, and we're filling big stadiums. So these are the facts and the figures that we need to put out there so sponsors and funders can get on that bottom rung of the ladder before anybody else does. So that's probably my rant as well as my points. So just waking up my iPad again, apologies. So thank you very much, Karen and Abbie. That was so insightful. And our next woman speaker is Sarah. And Sarah is very close to my heart, Egyptian national football team. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to congratulate the organizers for this event. I hope we have more of it. I'm very honored to be here today. Okay, I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Sarah Assam. I'm 25 years old. I play football and I'm a civil engineer. I started in Egypt. As we all know, we lacked opportunities. We didn't have like an agent or like someone to really believe in you that you can make it and live alone and travel abroad and like as an Egyptian young girl and be able to play like professional football. So I struggled, I had challenges as we all do, but I believed in myself. I had to really have my mentality tough, like to overcome the negativities and the success killers. So yeah, I became the first Egyptian and Arab to play football in the UK and Spain, professional football in Spain. Recently, my dream, like I was the official ambassador at the World Cup men in Qatar as a woman with David Beckham. Can you believe that? I didn't believe it when they told me, but like an official ambassador with the icon David Beckham, to sit with him, to do the same role as him for the men's World Cup, not the women. So for me, like it feels great to open, like to break barriers and to give hope to the next generation and to like start by yourself. I really, like when I was younger, I wanted to have like an Egyptian female role model who can be a civil engineer, who can play football like in Europe or in the UK. So I had a lot of struggles, and of course, like my family believed in me, and this something helped me a lot. I worked on myself. I even like did commentating on football with the BBC as an Egyptian for the first time, like an Egyptian woman with the BBC in London. It was like a dream for me. Like my mom told me, like, can you really do that? Like, have you done it before? So like the more you work on yourself, the more like doors will open for you. So I just want to say I'm very honored. I'm very grateful. I want to continue my journey. I'm hungry for more. I want to also say the funny thing is, like, of course, we all know Mo Salah. And when I became the first Egyptian to play in the UK, it was the same time that he signed with Liverpool. So everybody's telling me, Mo Salah, you are the female version of Mo Salah. Okay, it's an honor for me. He's the best, one of the best Egyptian footballers in the world. We all know that. But please, like, can you say my name? Like, don't say like the female version of Mo Salah. So yeah, thank you so much. If I kept on talking, I will not finish now. So I have a lot of stories. So I want to thank also my mom, my sisters for coming all the way to support me today. Yeah. My mom is telling me, she told me, like, tell me I'm your role model. Yes, Mama, you are my role model. I said, she's my role model. So, yeah. Okay, Egyptian queen, thank you. Thank you, thank you everyone for listening, and I hope that we have more events like this to inspire the next generation of males and females in the Middle East and the whole world. Thank you.
What a reoccurring message, the support of family. I think that's hugely important. Even my father reluctantly buying my football boots at 15. But there is a theme here that you do need that support, which is hugely important. And I think the other theme I've picked up from Sarah is, this is why we're here today. Women in the Middle East and North Africa, where it hasn't always been easy in the past for them to take part in sport. And it is so open and so achievable now. And this is the key message. And Sarah is living, breathing example of how she's managed to cultivate her career in sport and not compromising her culture, which is amazing. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
So next up is Sarah Byrne, for you rugby fans. She played for England Rugby. Sarah, over to you.
Hi, yeah, I'm Sarah Byrne. I played rugby, and as we all know, rugby is a male-dominated sport. It always has been. It comes with a lot of stigma. It comes a lot with a lot of challenges. And I was very lucky to get my first international cap with England at the age of 18, which is quite young, especially for a front row, which is a really, really awful position. Don't play it. It's really hard. So yeah, managed to get to, within that year, I moved positions to the front row, had to learn how to do it. And then within 8 months, I was then selected to play in that World Cup in 2017, which we lost in the last 20 minutes to New Zealand, so that was really difficult. But along the way, many accolades with England. England have been extremely successful. The Red Roses have gone from not being contracted, not from it to be a job. And actually, I remember having a conversation with my dad when I was younger, and he was like, you can get paid to do this. And I said, Dad, don't be silly, women can't get paid. And here I am sat now as a professional rugby player. So we went from having no contracts to having an 8-month contract for the World Cup, losing the World Cup, having our contracts taken away from us because we weren't successful. And then eventually, people stuck up for us, and we got our contracts back. So England have now been professional since 2019. We've won multiple Grand Slams. We've hold the world record for the most amount of games won in a row consecutively in rugby. That's male and female. And we then managed to lose that streak, losing the World Cup again to New Zealand, again, which again was difficult. But yeah, me personally, I play slightly different. I probably came onto the scene, I was more of a back row. I played sevens growing up, which I know a lot of you that don't know rugby will have no idea, but it's very different to 15s. And I got pushed into a front row, which is really, really different from sevens. A sevens is your athletic, not that front rows aren't athletic, but you're kind of your fast-paced players. And your front row originally at the time was your bigger, your slower players, your unfit. And I really didn't want to move. There was a lot of stigma attached to it. But now I kind of thought I'm not going to be put into a box, and actually I'm going to learn how to scrum and do that role, but also play the rugby I want to play and the rugby I grew up playing, and that's kind of my brand of rugby now. And along the way, picked up many accolades for that, and was I'm the only woman, female or male, the only prop to be nominated for World Player of the Year, which is kind of cool. So yeah, but again, I got beaten by Emily Scarrett, which, again, she's like a legend in rugby, so fair enough to her. But yeah, it's really cool. Women's rugby it is difficult to be in a lot of the time. It is still very male-dominated, even though we are extremely successful. You would look at the players now when we just don't get the same traction, the same opportunities, the same investment that we do with the males. You look at for terms of as a front row. In my position, you have Ellis Genge, who's Nike sponsor. You have Carl Sinclair, who's Adidas sponsor. You look at the female team, even though we are the most successful team in the world, none of the front rows have sponsors like that, which for me is just, it's mind-blowing considering the amount that this team has achieved. So that there's still massive room for women's rugby to grow, and it's the fastest growing sport in the world. So I would heavily suggest getting involved, go and watch it, and keep investing in it, because I think it's going to take off rapidly over the next few years. And actually England are hosting the 2025 World Cup, and we're hoping to sell out Twickenham for the first time, which will be really amazing. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Sarah. So you heard it here first. They want to sell out Twickenham for women's rugby. Just think about that when we get to 2025 and the Women's World Cup. Thank you, Sarah. Again, I think very much sharing the determination to succeed in a very male-dominated environment. It does take a lot of courage, but it's getting easier, whether we like it or not. You know, we are getting far more acceptable to have cross-gender now in sport, and that's exactly what we need. If I had my way, we'd remove gender and just look at the sport and allow everybody to take part in the sport they want. But, you know, that's perhaps a long way away. Last but by no means least, I would like to introduce LAMA, who is I think the vice chair of Saudi Athletics Commission. How amazing is that? This will show you how far Saudi has come with women in sport, and I am delighted to hear from LAMA. Thank you.
Is this speaking? Yes? Okay. Hi, my name is ALFOZAN. I'm an athlete. I'm a fencer. I'm part of the Saudi Fencing Federation, and I'm also the vice chair of the Athletes Committee that is under the Saudi Olympic Committee. I was introduced to fencing when I was a teenager, actually. I lived in France, and I saw fencing by coincidence. I never really thought that I could be a fencer. Fast forward, I had to go back to Saudi for my university, and back then it's not like what we have now. There was no vision. There was no place for females to play sports. So I was introduced to fencing, and I had to go fence with the Bahraini national team. And step by step, I was introduced to the Saudi Fencing Federation and to the Olympic Committee, and we were able to create the first Saudi female fencing team. I never really thought that I could go pro. 1 year later, they said that there's the Olympics that's going to come up in 2016. Obviously, I was not by any means ready. And there's something called a wild card that comes from the International Olympic Committee, and they trained us for approximately 6 months. And the wild card was basically me and my other colleague. And I'm an EPS. She's a florist, so she went because the wild card was for a florist, and I was super, super proud of her. But the thing that I want to say is that there has been immense change now in Saudi, and that we are not going to participate just to participate. So we have a vision, we have a national sports strategy, we have amazing support from the government and from the Ministry of Sports. The minister is an athlete himself, and he understands firsthand what are the obstacles that athletes are facing. And what has happened today in Saudi is just absolutely amazing. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough. When I first started, there were only 200 female athletes, and today we have 7,000 female athletes. Yeah. It has been really a historical moment. We started with 32 federations. Today we have more than 97 federations. We have female athletes, female trainers, female who are working at and who sit on boards. I am one of them. I believe that the future is absolutely optimistic and bright in Saudi when it comes to females in sports. Yes, we do have a long way to go. I don't think we're going to do much now in the Paris Olympics, but mark my words, we are going to do a lot in the years to come. So yeah.
That's amazing. I was fortunate enough to work in Saudi Arabia from 2014 to 16, and I was hearing all of these comments then about how Saudi was changing the landscape for women in sport. And I could just see that starting to change. But my goodness, they've gone at pace. They've been like Usain Bolt ever since. They've just gone at such pace. It's amazing to see how open it is now for women in sport, which delights me. And another thing I'd like to just end this part of the session on, firstly, what amazing women. I would like to sort of share a round for all of them. Thank you. And there's another reference I'd like to make to an amazing woman. We have somebody in the audience who is the son of Rachel Hayhoe Flint. And it would be remiss of me not to mention this, as this woman was absolutely groundbreaking. I was fortunate enough to have done a TV show with her many years ago, and I was just in awe of her journey. Those of you who don't know Rachel Hayhoe Flint, she played cricket. Ben, are you still here with us? Ben, would you like to just share a few details about your mother's extraordinary journey? You can pop up here if you like. Come on, we want to hear this. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
You're very welcome.
Lovely to meet you. There's so many people that whose lives Mum touched, and Janie, you're obviously one of them. And I didn't know half of the people, a tenth of the people that she connected with over a long career, both on the pitch. And then in the governance of the game, and then in the House of Lords, yet another Baroness. We've had a few in the room today, trying to help, champion women's sport and just sport full stop at schools, ticketing and the fairness in ticketing. She did an awful lot in her career, but I guess it all started in the back streets of Wolverhampton, where her brother was playing cricket in the street. And she just wanted to give it a go as the younger sister. And so she just gave it a go in the street. And a policeman came up and told her off for playing cricket, saying, girls don't play cricket. Or a bit of a Brummie accent, but not very good at that anymore. And probably similar stories that we've heard up here as well. And then she was lucky enough to play in a school, to be at a school where they played cricket for girls and for boys. So she got that leg up. And then she got inspired by people, and then when she was playing, and to enable her to catapult the women's team a little bit more professionally, she found an incredibly kind benefactor in the shape of Sir Jack Hayward, who was a British-born philanthropist and businessman who developed the Bahamas, eventually bought Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club, for whom Mum did various roles. And he just wrote some extremely large cheques in those days, which enabled them to do a little bit more, like go on tour to the West Indies, or to buy some blazers, buy some kit. It was incredibly rudimentary back in the 60s and 70s when Mum was captain of England. And then she just took care of one chapter of women's cricket development, and then other people are now continuing it on. But it's fabulous, and I'm trying to praise this as quickly as possible here, but happy to answer more questions. But it's fabulous to see the sustenance of the women's cricket game now being taken forward by other people like Claire Connor, for example, and it's night and day to what women's cricket looked like back in the 60s and 70s, where mum wore some shoes with 3 stripes on them, and she got told off by the ladies who were in charge of the Women's Cricket Association for wearing sponsored kit. I used to go round as like a snotty-nosed kind of 8-year-old around the perimeter of a cricket pitch with a blanket asking for spare change, which would go to funding the England women's cricket team and the regional cricket teams that were in force back then. So it really has come an awful long way. And yeah, Mum was just great at smashing through glass ceilings and again, just taking care of one piece of it, which is now being perpetuated, which is fantastic.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Thank you. She was also the one that knocked on the door repeatedly to the MCC when they said we don't have women members. They did by the time Rachel Hayhoe-Flint finished with them. So now we've come to that point that, do you have any questions for any of the panel? Yes, lady here. Have you got a roving mic? Thank you. Oh, over here first, and then Janet.
Hi, I'm Sarah Johnson, a lawyer at Charles Russell Speeches. Thank you for speaking today. My question's focused on motorsport, but I think can apply to other sports as well. With F1 Academy series coming out with Hello Sunshine and Charlotte Tilbury sponsoring a team, you can already see that the sport's on a precipice of becoming quite global quite quickly. And of course, that has so many benefits, but being a group of people who want to be solution-focused, what would you say will be the main challenges with that like very short rise to fame and popularity? And how can we kind of address those challenges? And it would be helpful to hear your insights from different sports as well.
Okay, thank you. Karen, would you like to start us on that? Do you mind?
Yeah, thanks for that. When More Than Equal began, the W series was still going, and sadly, any series that promotes and includes and supports women, has to be welcomed. And F1 Academy hadn't started yet, so we can only applaud F1 Academy. And I'll be interested to know what Abbie thinks. It's women racing women in F4, F3 cars, lower spec cars. And from all of the research that we've looked into and what we learned and what young drivers and other drivers and some of the best drivers that are women that are achieving, they say to us, you need to start young. So for us, the opportunity, and of course it's a tough sell to sponsors, to investors, and we need to be very appropriate and very careful in regards to safeguarding because we're dealing with children. But these girls, you don't want to mess with them. Boy, they can drive better than I can at my old age. So I think the opportunity is about the pathway, because we believe that the woman that will get to F1 is a 12, 13-year-old now. But Abbie, I might throw to you on that.
Yeah, and I think we saw some stats earlier on about percentage of female to male viewers of motorsport. And I think back in the day when I did all my kind of funding myself, I used to pitch and spend hours on the laptop and cold calling people and so on. And, I pitched to like feminine healthcare brands, and no one was interested. And their argument was, well, that's not our audience that we're looking for. It's mainly male-dominated audience. But, it was pretty much, I think the lowest it got down to was a 44% female. Well, that's nearly half, wasn't it? So majority of them were 50 or above. And I think that, in turn, is probably a lot responsible thanks to Netflix and Drive to Survive. Now, I know F1 Academy have just released that they are having a Netflix documentary done on them as well. So, I think slowly these big organisations and brands are starting to take note and realise that actually motorsport is worth investing into. And, I think hats off to Charlotte Tilbury for making that jump, because, I'm sure there are a lot of people probably telling her and advising her it's not a good move. But I think all it has been received with is positivity. And, it's crazy. Where were we? We were in another country racing, and there was some massive advertisements of Charlotte Tilbury and the F1 Academy car. So, you know, she's proving that it is a successful partnership, and hopefully that just encourages more brands to do the same.
I mean, it absolutely helps us, and the brands that we're talking to love that we are independent, non-profit. We're applying for charity status. We'll be the first in motorsport to do that, and we're disruptive. And it's causing a bit of friction, but there are many disruptive brands with really, you know, strong purpose goals at the core. It used to be that there was, you know, the sort of, you know, what do you call it, CSR spend, now become the purpose spend, and that was somewhere over there, and you might get a few bucks. And then there was the marketing spend. We're having really positive conversations with brands that want to be in at the beginning and want that opportunity, because, you know, I think, you know, many things they say that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think, you know, purpose and trust and, you know, having a really genuine goal says a lot about a brand and a company. And we've got the research to prove that women, that huge growing audience for F1, they'll go to more races if they see women go head to head. They will support and buy those brands. And that is a business opportunity that cannot be ignored.
Thank you very much.
Can I just have a word?
Of course you can.
I mean, I will not add anything. They
Of
had
course.
amazing answers, and I'm very happy to see Charlotte Tilbury there as well. And in my journey in the motorsport world, I had the same issues. It's very common to get the answer, what are we doing in motorsports? We're not a brand for motorsports, or we're a feminine brand, etc. But I think this is bound to change. I just want to give one small example. Talking here about FIA, I kind of went back to my experience in the Middle East, and I just don't want to skip that, if with your permission. In the years 2012-13, when I was racing in the Middle East Championship, I really wanted to race in Saudi, and I was not allowed at the time because there was Hail Rally. I just went. I was very hardly managed to film it and present it, but I couldn't race. And now today, to see successful female drivers like Dania Hill from Saudi or Reem Al Aboud from Saudi, they are doing amazing things in the world of motorsports as drivers and as strong drivers. And WRC is coming to Saudi. This was announced in 2025. This is just amazing news. I don't want to skip it. My personal feelings about this, I get very sentimental. So I think great things are going to happen, and this is amazing.
It's amazing.
And it's worth, Janie, just saying that when we did the global applications, there are young girls karting in Saudi, in Bahrain, in Qatar, in the UAE, and many of them applied for our program. So watch that track.
Thank you. Just one more point on that. I read recently that the Irish women's football team is now sponsored by Cadbury's chocolate. Come on, most women like chocolate. Good bit of marketing then. We have a question here first, and I'll come to you. Over here, if you don't mind. Have you got a roaming mic? Roaming mic? Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to say congratulations to everybody and their amazing achievements, and thank you for sharing your stories. My name is Janice Argyle. I'm here representing two agencies. One, the Youth Charter, which I co-founded with my husband, an executive director, which works on young people, mostly from disaffected and disadvantaged backgrounds, to do something positive through sport, culture and the arts, and we've been doing that for 31 years. The second is a Professional Footballers Association, which I kind of fell into a role of interim secretary to the board when they were doing a massive transformational change. And obviously we've spoken about football, and I just wanted to touch on one thing that happened very recently, that the PFA recently employed their new head of coaching, and that is actually a former Lioness, Louise Newstead, who beat a great sort of panel of male counterparts. I think she was the only female that went for it, and she actually got the job. So I think that's, you know, a great move in the right direction as well. My background in sport is actually karate. I started when I was 16 at the suggestion of my mum for self-defence, and I was actually attacked when I was 16, so became, you know, really encouraged to continue in that line. I went to the first World Championships where they held women's kumite, which is the fighting side of karate. Basically got a bronze medal there. Went on 1985, became a world champion. and I actually then married my counterpart, who was 5 times world champion. Very funny to say that I became known as the wife of Jeff Thompson, not as a world champion in my own right. So karate being a very male-dominated sport as well. I also wanted to touch on something that was referred to in the previous session, with parents being very influential in what their children do. And I have 3 kids, they're all grown up, but they spent a lot of time watching myself and my husband train. That's literally what we did a lot of the time. And now I have one who's a professional boxer, one who's a tennis and paddle coach, and a daughter who has actually just finished a 5-year contract with the Lion King as a sort of singer, dancer, actress. So they certainly sort of followed in the stead. I also wanted to touch on something. Obviously, great strides are being made with women in sport. Something that I've noticed for myself is women and girls with brown or black skin are still not managing to get into the positions that they should. A lot of them have got the talent, they've got the experience, the know-how, the knowledge, everything. But I think something needs to be done there, and I wonder what the panel thought of this.
Thank you. Who would like to take that one? Silence.
I think it's, I agree with that. Like, I hope to see more Arab female footballers play in the WSL, for example, and in top European leagues. I think this is coming. Like, I forgot to mention also, I'm very, very proud as an Arab of the Moroccan women national team and the Saudi Arabian women's national team as well. I think there's a lot of progress, there's a lot of change in a very short time. So I think, like, why not? Like, really, the question is, like, why not we see more Arab and African females playing professional leagues?
Thank you. And that is an issue in this country as well. You know, when you look at the England women's team, it is a little bit shocking, but we are working on that. And you referenced the PFA. The PFA would tell you 47% of the professional players are of colour, and that is not replicated when you go into coaching roles, manager roles, and any roles outside of actually playing. But I'm mindful of time now, and I did say that this lady down here could just have the final word. We can catch up.
Hi, my name's Nalain Naidu, and my question is to rugby and football. And this is linked to the learning that I've seen is, for example, from the Swiss ice hockey women's team. They do really well, but all of them keep day jobs and they play, as opposed to the Swiss male. They don't need to really have a day job. What is the future of women's rugby? Do they find jobs after that within the field? Do they move out of the field? And the same with women in the Arab world. What is the working potential, futuristic vision for those that are playing now and their career next steps?
Thank you. Very quickly then, Sarah and Sarah.
In women's rugby, you're only professional if you're with your national team, and that's very different from what national team you're with. England are really lucky. They have been pioneers in contracting players, and they've been very dominant in it. France and New Zealand are really catching up, so they'll have 32 contracted players or something. But if you are not contracted by your national team, you're just a rugby player. That is your hobby, and you have a full-time job. So I play at Bristol Bears in our Premiership. We have doctors, we have dentists, we have students, we have so many different jobs. It's becoming really difficult. We're in this element of semi-pro, and the demands of rugby and the acceleration and the games that they're putting on, the people that are interested in it is great, but that funding's not quite there yet. We're not getting, like we said before, women's sport is a loss, and rugby is slightly behind women's football. Hopefully, with the World Cup coming up and there being a lot more investment and a lot more teams getting professional contracts like Scotland, Ireland, and Wales, new global tournaments where people can go and watch those teams, that will generate that interest, and we'll get more people coming to those things, and it will follow women's football. But it is quite far behind, and at the point now, most female rugby players, there's very, very few that will be professional, and most of them will be full-time in other employment areas. But hopefully with the broadcast deals and more and more opportunities, again, to be successful, that will fizzle out over the next 10 years.
Okay, thank you. Really quickly from Sarah, because we're 2 minutes over already and I'm getting the signals.
Yeah, you spoke about the players, like that, what they can work after or like during. I think this is something to do with, like, we need more agencies and like managers to tell the player, like, it's like every player has a different profile. Some players has more sponsors, some players can rely only on their sport, or maybe can have to work for another job. So I think we need like more agencies, more sponsors to manage that with the athletes, because it's too much, as you said, I know, and like the salary gaps and the funding.
Okay. I'm going to have to wrap it up there, even though I know I can see there's questions on people's lips. But thank you ever so much. I'd like to thank my panel of amazing women.